Good morning, everyone, and I want to welcome you to Crossroads. Here at Crossroads, we are open to you to just worship, bring all your troubles, and let the Lord lead. Several of you have, not, a whole bunch, but just several of you have asked me in the past, is this echoing too much? Maybe a little bit. Anyway. So several of you asked me for a while back, and why don't you tell your life story? I've said it in little synopses of here and there, and never really told the whole story to anyone. And so, thanks to my lovely daughter that's been very kind to me to do that, I'm grateful for her help because I am not a tech savvy at all. Now, I know that Bobby over there, he is, because he works with MRI and CAT scans and all that. I know that. But Bobby, I left when those fancy things came on. So I didn't learn too much with all those things. If we can find some more seats over here, we'll welcome all these young people over here. We got a whole row up here, and welcome. Wow, what a great young people over here. Amazing. Thank you for bringing everyone here. We're a full house today, and my privilege. So today I'm going to tell you my life story, and the story begins in a little town of Crossroads in former Yugoslavia. Anybody here actually knows where Yugoslavia was, and it still is there, but it's not Yugoslavia anymore. How many know about Yugoslavia? From the map, what it used to be. Yugoslavia was a communist country when I was growing up, and this picture shows with a red brick our present house there in the village of Crossroads. And this is a story from Crossroads, Yugoslavia, to Centralia, Missouri. So, see if this will work. Oh, wrong direction. Okay, well, we'll go this way. That doesn't do it. Up, there we go. All right. The story starts in this little house up that you have probably seen it once before, I don't know. That little house is actually a duplex. That's where 7 of us lived. If all of the children that my parents had, there would have been 10 children, but 3 girls died in infancy. So 7 people lived there with mom and dad, so that was 9 people in that little house on the right, where you see the picture of my father with my 2 youngest brothers there. As a young boy, you looked for a better life. It was very common to be 15 years old. How many of you are 15 years old now? I know some of you young people. Yeah, there you go. At 15 years old, you left home and you were looking for work because there was nothing to eat and not much to drink, unless you carried the water. So that's where I was. I was one of the 7 children, and things were pretty primitive in our village. Second World War, I was born 3 years after the war stopped, so things were pretty rough all the way around, everywhere in the country. If you come to the village now, you would see this beautiful picture that's there, a lady knitting and crocheting or doing something to their Croatian flag. Yugoslavia was divided into 6 countries during the Balkan War in 1991 to 1995, 5 years war. So a lot of tragic things happened there. Now somebody was very kind and put a little arrow This is my graduating class of 8th grade. I never graduated from 8th grade. I only graduated from 7th grade, but I did attend 8 years to grade school. But it was a very common thing there that if you missed one subject during the school year, you repeated the whole school year. So you teachers, you're very kind to your children that you teach here. Sometimes you slip that and you kind of oversee that. So that was my last class there in school in Vojvodina, Croatia. There is the school. As a boy, I attended there. I had some pretty mean teachers. But you know, during that time, teachers can do everything they wanted to, and if you did something bad, you came home, your father gave you some more. So you dare not say anything when you came home that you did anything bad at school. It was, as a boy, you know, being almost 15 then, and you know, we as boys and as everybody, humans, we like to earn a little money. Well, I learned in this school, I learned to speak German, and so therefore I could lead tourists from Germany to different places, and every now and then they would slip me a few marks. In those days there were no euros, there were just marks, German marks. And if you had a German mark, I mean, you could buy almost half a bakery, you know. And having a little money for bread was very kind. I pursued that because we had to look for ourselves for food and eating and different things. At home there wasn't much of anything. So I pursued to look around. Now the only way to get around there was either walk or you took the train. And this is a train station, waiting station, where one of the ways, like I said, to make money was to play a tourist guide, you know. And it happened right there at this train station called Kamanje. Now, Kamanje just means stones. Kamen is just one stone, but Kamanje means just stones, because that area was just full of stones. Even the ground had stones in it, so you couldn't grow a lot of things there. I'll get it to it yet. And remember, there was 7 kids in our family that lived. My father was a hardworking man, but because he did not carry a communist card, in other words, if you became a communist, you were able to get some help when you didn't have things. But because my dad chose not to carry that card, he believed in worshiping God. My dad was an honest man, worked hard. He repaired shoes for many people. And unfortunately, when I was 7, my mother was struck by lightning. And so here was Dad with children and not much food to eat. We didn't have money. There was no opportunities. Things were slim. And as a young boy, I loved to jump trains, as any boy would. And you older folks remember the old steamers, locomotives. You remember those? Anybody still remember? Or you guys are too young? Okay, a few of you remember. The old steamer was pulling into Kamanya to that train station, and I happened to be there. And it was very easy to spot a tourist because they were dressed very nice, and they carried a suitcase. Peasant people didn't wear suits. They didn't wear ties. And so it was very easy for me to spot a tourist and latch myself. And I met the man at that train station there in Kamanya. And that particular man, eventually down the road, he sponsored me to come to the United States. Now in Romans 8:28, I better go and give you. It says, and we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. Now you can say to me, Steve, how did you get called? I don't know. And I still have a hard time with that verse. And we know that all things work together for good to those that love God. How did I know that I loved God? I attended catechism class as a Catholic. I had a little bit of knowledge. My father wanted us to be churchgoers. That's why he didn't carry a card. Because if he was a communist, you could not put your foot in a church. But my father did every Sunday that he could. And he made sure that I would go and learn the catechism. And I still remember the 10 commandments that I learned there, in Croatian, by the way. So, and we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. What is God's purpose for you and me? What is it? What was my purpose at 15? Did I know? I had no idea. I just knew that I was at the train station, and I knew that I met a man that was not from our part of the world. He carried a suitcase. He had a camera around his neck, and I carried that camera. I took it from him. I carried it. Man, it was almost down to my ankles. And I carried this heavy suitcase. He wanted to come and see where his parents came from. He was a rancher from Montana. I never dreamed, how would I know that I would end up in Montana? I never even heard of where that thing was. I hardly knew the US of A, America. Everybody talked about America because the dollar bills were all over the streets. You just had to pick them up. Now I better go forward here. This man is the man that you see there with glasses on. The other three people in front of the guy that's got a blue shirt on, you probably recognize him. That's me. He wasn't the most gracious person in the world. I dug many holes. I built many corrals. I cut many trees with axe. I carried them down to the river, and we loaded them up and hauled them and built corrals for the horses and cattle. I built fences in the Rocky Mountains there, and hauled the big rolls of wire on my shoulders, and I don't know how many in the pack, those big steel posts, fence posts. I carried one pack on each shoulder. And the short version is, I wrecked my back. And I ended up almost paralyzed on my right side. For 3 months, he kept me in a dungeon by himself in a room. Would not let anybody come and see me or anything like that. But remember, God works all things for good. I attended the little 2-room school, public school. I spoke no English, called Lamont School near Bear Creek Canyon, Montana. And actually it was in the canyon of Bear Creek Canyon, Montana. Anybody ever heard of that place? Bear Creek Canyon, Montana? Gary?
I lived there.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. So you know where I'm talking about. You probably went by the Lamont School. It's still, by the way, working school. It's a little 2-room school, maybe 3 now. We had a little playground in the back of it. I came to Montana. I didn't speak any English. And of course, where do you learn English? Is in where, guys? In school, right? Yeah, you got to go to school. So here I am, almost 16 years old, and I'm in the 3rd and 4th grade there. And in that little school, there were 2 wonderful, wonderful people, 2 wonderful ladies. Very Christian women. In fact, they were so kind to me that I wondered if they weren't a little partial to me. I don't know. Because one of them decided that I needed extra help to learn English. And there happened to be a young lady who had to do some student teaching. And she happened to be teaching at that little Lamont school, that particular school year of mine. First year there, I am the oldest student in the school. And you know what? I learned English pretty well. In 6 months, I could speak because she was so beautiful. I was embarrassed otherwise. I had to learn, you know. So it was kind of a bonus thing. As I said, I broke my back and I had to have a spinal fusion. And 3 months later, after he finally let me go to the hospital, as I was laying in the hospital, I wasn't sure what my future held. But God works all things together, and sometimes He uses people to do this. Remember, I said there were 2 very nice Christian women who taught at that public school. And God used one of them to help me. So here's the Lamont, in front of Lamont School. One of the teachers was Velma Gladden. And her family were so kind to me when I couldn't live with the man who sponsored me anymore because he didn't want me. Guess who took me in? It was one of those teachers, Velma Gladden. Her husband was a pastor, and this was in addition to busy family they had. They had 7 children. Some were already grown and married. Some were younger. And I made it to be their 8th child. They gave me a place to live and shared God's love with me. As I told you, I was raised to believe in God. I attended the church because my father thought that I needed to learn whatever there was. Even though we got beating in school if somebody reported us that we went to church because the school was right close to the church. During communism, you were not allowed to go and learn anything about God. And yet, even though the teachers punished us, my father wanted us to go. I didn't know that the Gladdens would take me, and I didn't know if I would have to go back to Yugoslavia. I had a back that was fused by that time, and I was in a body cast from here to here for 3 full months. I was in a hospital in Billings, Montana, which is, some of you know where Billings, Montana is. It's about 130 miles away from where I lived on the ranch, or with Glenn. While I was in the hospital, you have a lot of time to think and to pray. I was there without family or friends or anybody. But remember, God is always in the story if you let him in. Gladdens knew that I was in the hospital, and they gathered a whole bunch of people one Sabbath afternoon. And guess what? They drove that Volkswagen microbus. You old folks probably remember that 60s, the Volkswagen microbus, that little, anybody remember those? Yeah, you know, you piled everybody in, and they drove 130 miles to the hospital to see me. It was at that visit that started the conversation that led me to live with them. Amazing people they were. Oops, again. And this is the picture of Velma Gladden on the left there. You see it? Dad and Mom always praying, and a big family. The Gladden family, Velma and Ralph, embodied the verse that says, "What you have done to the least of these, you have done it unto me." And I believe they've done that to me. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here in this country today. They had a big family. They always loved family. They always loved gatherings. Mom loved music. And I can tell you, she can play that accordion, and any instrument there was, Mom Gladden could play it. Sabbath afternoons, we would go for rides, and we would have worship in the evening in some park, and she would just play the hymns. And what a wonderful thing. And I'll still remember the one song that sticks with me so much. On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross, the emblem of suffering and shame. It was there for me that he hung on the cross. Matthew 25:37 says, "Then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or naked and clothe you? Or when did we see you sick or in prison and come to you?" And the king will answer and say to them, "Assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you have did it to one of the least of these, my brethren, you did it unto me." And that's exactly what they did for me. I was basically going to be left on the street if they didn't come into my rescue. Okay, there they are. The Gladden family not only gave me a home in a moment that they took me in, but they gave me the opportunity for a better future. They helped me find my faith in God, and Dad Gladden baptized me. I'm blessed to call them my American family, and I have ever since. My kids called them Grandma and Grandpa Gladden, and they were wonderful grandparents. After I was released from the hospital, I went to live with Velma and Ralph. Ralph had received a call to pastor a church in Oregon, and the family was getting ready to move. As you know, the pastors move, and the school teachers move. I hadn't finished 8th grade yet by that time. Remember, I came here not knowing any English. Velma, Mom Gladden, helped me get my 8th grade diploma so that I could go to high school at age 17. And the interesting thing about that diploma is, by the way, you teachers here, I know there's few. The interesting thing about this diploma, I never actually attended that school, not even 1 hour, but I received the diploma from particular church school because Velma Gladden knew everyone on that school little board. And she said, I will make sure that Steve will read that 8th grade history book all the way through during the summer. And so I received that diploma so I could go then to Laurelwood Academy in Oregon when they moved there. By the way, how many of you know which first 13 states joined the Union? Huh? Can you name them all? All of you. By the way, I knew it and I forgot some of them, so I'm not going to repeat them to you. But I can name quite a few. But yes, I had to read every night to her out loud. Doesn't matter if it was 10 o'clock, 8 o'clock, whatever it was. We had to finish a chapter every night. And if I missed a word, didn't read it correctly, she made me repeat it. It might be 5 times, but I had to repeat it. So I learned it. And that was Velma Gladden. One day I was driving around. I was working between my academy summer. You know, you have to work to earn the entrance fee to go to academy. So I was working in Portland, Oregon there, and in a hospital and doing all kinds of odd jobs. And I had a little motorcycle that kind of puffed around, you know, and got me around. And I was able to come to a place called Mount Hood Community College. And I thought, well, you know, I wanted to do some checking there to, you know, pretty close. I might be going to college because I was on a student visa and I needed to be in school, you know, and all those kind of things. So I decided that it's time to do something about it. And so I stopped there at the college and inquired, and yes, they gave GED tests there, and they accepted me for $15. It wasn't too bad. And 5 nights every night for 3 hours, I took 5 subjects. And on Friday night, thank the Lord, I passed all 5, and I got my high school diploma, and I was able to then pursue my education. Anyway, I tell people, don't ever be afraid of anything you do. No job is too small or too big for you. I washed dishes. I did the dirty laundry. I sorted dirty laundry. I picked up dirty laundry in the floors. I did all kinds of dirty work in the hospital. And you know what? I'm still here. But I earned 90 cents an hour for doing it. And when they raised it to $1, it was amazing, because I still did it for a long time. And while I was at the hospital, I tried to look at, to know the different people people who could be of help to you if you need it. And you know who those people are? The administrator, the personnel, the payroll, the accountants, all these heads of different departments. I knew them all. And the reason was I wanted to get into the X-ray program there in the hospital because I had no money to go to college. And how are you going to go to school if you have no money? And I had nobody else. And guess what? I put my application in, and they told me, no way can you, the boss, the main guy that was over the department, that you can get into that training. We got 24 applicants. I said, put mine to be 25th. And I was one out of 4 students that they accepted that year into X-ray program. Lord will provide, right? Between my first year in X-ray training and the second year there, that particular winter, we had a couple workers in our department that were quite the joking ladies and very fun to be around, friends of Bonnie's and mine. And anyway, they kind of played a trick on us, and we were going to go up to Mount Tabor, which was behind the hospital, and we were going to do little motorcycle tricks up there in the hills like somebody else I know, but anyway, I wasn't. Anyway, won't go there. But instead, one of the girls said to me, why don't you take my sports car? She had one of those Datsun 280Zs. Am I right, Ed? 280Z, I think it was in those days. I think they had them. And wouldn't I take that? Oh, come on. Being a young guy, I said, sure. But they said, Bonnie needs to go with you. And then we'll meet you up there. Well, they never met us up there, and Bonnie and I had a great time, nice evening together. Anyway, so I married the right woman. That was me. You heard us saying the phrase, I married the right woman. Yeah, that was me. This is Bonnie, and at our wedding, of course. And on the left is Mom and Dad of hers, and on the right is my American parents, Ralph and Velma Gladden. Wonderful people. Philippians 1:6 says this, being confident of this very thing, that he who has begun a good work in you will complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. Marrying Bonnie began a lifelong journey of family and friendships. We have been blessed with a beautiful family. I couldn't have the best in-laws. I had the wonderful people in my life. Bonnie's family is and was wonderful people. We were just blessed. Bonnie and I, we met while we were both working at the Portland Adventist Sanitarium. In those days, they called them sanitariums. I don't know, you people are aware of that probably. They did a lot of water treatments and different things that people got better. Anyway, that was in Portland Adventist. Now it's Portland Adventist Hospital there, but the old building, it still stands there in some kind of a nursing facility. God was working in our lives. We moved from Portland to Denver. I worked there for a short time, and then we moved to Medford, Oregon. But we both wanted our children to grow up with family. My grandparents both passed away before I was ever born. I had no grandparents, never seen them, never know who they were. Bonnie and I wanted our children to know their grandparents. And that's them right there. So when our oldest Carla was 4 years old, we moved to Centralia, Missouri to live by another family that loved God. My in-laws, Carlos and Francis Coffin, were most wonderful people. Our kids were blessed to have these people in their lives. Their love is what brought me and my family to Centralia. This is the short version. There are now 57 years of marriage, 2 son-in-laws, 5 grandchildren, and many wonderful memories. The kids and grandkids, we love them all. We are blessed. I can't read it from over here because my glasses for distance aren't. My glasses are for reading, so I can't see it. But I'll tell you about this. This is my father and my American father, Ralph Gladden. On the left is my dad. First year Bonnie and I were married, my dad was quite ill, and so I wanted my dad to come and see what was wrong with him, and it wasn't many years later that he passed away. But the Gladdens still remained, and they both passed away. However, their children, the youngest ones, were still in touch, were together, and were still family. I'm going to end with a verse, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declared the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. If you had told me the twists and turns my life would take, I probably wouldn't have believed it. But God is always with us when we let Him. I firmly believe that God has a plan for our lives. Sometimes He sends people to bless us, and sometimes we are the people to bless others. Our lives are not without hardship, but God is always good.